Today, we're looking at the Nintendo Switch 2 official released promo video. And we're going to be looking at it together. I'm just going to be posting the video as I watch it. And I'm just going to be sharing my thoughts and opinions on it as a designer. So without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so the screen is bigger, showing a change of color into matte. Okay, we have volume, we have charging, jackpots. Okay, so first upgrade, it seems that we have the kickstand. It's from a little itty bitty kickstand on the first Switch. Now we have a more profound, sturdy kickback to be able to play it more steadily and securely, I imagine, on the go. Yeah, sure, it springs. Doubt that's gonna happen, but okay, going to black matte. Okay, going with bigger controllers. Okay. Okay, now that is interesting here. Let's go back here. Yeah. So here, it seems like first seems like with all black color. So it's more of a matte color, which makes me think that, this, I have it right here just for comparison. But, with the red and blue colors of the Switch, it does feel like it's more playful. More, I wouldn't say childish necessary, but definitely more playful. And it seems with going with the whole thing black, even though the majority of the Switch itself is black, if you look at the screen and whatnot, it just feels like it's being directed or marketed for a more older, generation, let's say. But we're still keeping the colors. But instead of having, be too strong of a presence of the colors, there's more of an accent color, it seems. Which is fine. I like it as a designer. Like, my favorite color is black. I don't know if you can tell. So I'm fine with it. But from a technical perspective, or, from a controller perspective, so now we have a lot of components that are moved to the inside of the controller. So we still have the equivalents to the R1s and L1s, shoulder buttons, but they're now integrated into the controller instead of the nunchuck grips, right? So it seems like they're part of the controller. Also seems like the identifier of who's first, who's second on the controller is also part of the controller itself instead of the grips. So, I mean, that's interesting. Yeah, feels very Apple. The marketing, all the angles. Yeah, joystick moves very... Oh, that's... Okay, so this would be something good to bring up. Let's see if we can... Okay, there. So I think that is an optical sensor. This here is going to be the jack to connect to the screen. And I think all of these are the magnets that help connect the controllers to the screen. But what's interesting here about the optical sensor is that if the rumors are true, and that does look like an optical sensor, and just by what they're showing here, where it's they're moving as a mouse. That would be very interesting and something that would put my thoughts at ease of this small changes. I'm not saying it's necessarily bad. I'm not saying they're not sufficient, but it's, from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2, it doesn't feel very Nintendo. It feels more, the other console style, like, PS1, PS2, PS3, where the form factor of them, from PS1 to PS2 changes, but the controllers don't, right? PS1 through PS4 are basically the same model, just with upgrades every single console, except for PS5. From PS4 to PS5, that was a big jump. Nintendo tends to do big jumps every time, from a form factor perspective, but not just from the console, also the controllers, even the cartridges. If you look at them, right, they're all different. And this is something very interesting because from an affordance, perspective, these things permit you to do different things from a game design perspective. If you look, right, starting to get busy here, but the way that the Nintendo Switch controllers work, where you can either put them as part of the whole console and almost have it as a portable handheld console, where you can take them apart with like little controllers, or the flexibility of just snapping them and turning them into their own, like big controller, main controller with the grip. Not only that, you have all this flexibility that came with the Switch that, of course, was influenced by the Wii controllers, right? The idea of having the functionality of a controller like really separated into like left and right hand instead of like being a joint venture. But this is very different, and this permitted really different game feels, game designs to come about that are just not the same. They don't feel the same when you play the upgraded version of the Switch, or they cannot be played with any other type of controllers, even though these also permitted a very different experience. This is the Nintendo 64 controller, just in case anyone watching doesn't know. And it just it felt different. It permitted different things. So that's why I'm calling the form factor. The form factor here from the Switch 1 to the Switch 2, it looks like it's the same. It seems like it's bigger, right? Like I would say the screen from the Nintendo Switch 1 to 2, I think it grows substantially. I think it's almost like an inch, I would say. The controllers are the same, though they're bigger. So again, this going bigger might just be a trend of like bigger is better, but it also helps me to, I don't know, like think that this is actually being marketed for a older generation, not necessarily kids. Like if you're going with kids, then maybe, I don't know, the OLED version that's has less parts that can break, is more sturdy, it's smaller. So maybe that is going to be thought as for the smaller, the kids market, and this one is more for the the adults, the millennials, the young adult Gen Z. I don't know. Let's keep watching. Oh, well, and the point was that if the form factor is the same here, just the idea that I can take this, right, even though the form factor is going to be the same, and now I can use it as almost a mouse, I think that's going to open a lot of really, really interesting avenues for game design. Because it's a functionality that's never been available for the Nintendo console or any console really. It's always been the realm of the mouse and the PC, right? So we're taking that functionality and we're bringing it here. Now, good and or bad, I still don't know. I do think that with Nintendo opening their console to third-party developers, so there's a lot of Steam games that are now ported into the Nintendo experience and Nintendo Switch experience. All of those games are designed with the PC in mind, which means a mouse, a keyboard. And when they get ported into the Switch, now they have to be adapted into a, handheld controller mode, which can be done. But again, it wasn't designed for the little details, the game feel, the experience through the mouse. It's not going to be the same as with a controller. So if we are able to get that functionality of a mouse the optical sensor, and we're able now to use it as such, I think the portability aspect is going to feel smoother, and the design itself is going to be more cohesive when it comes from the PC to the Switch, which I think it's good. Aside from all the new possibilities, right? Like, just imagine being able to put the controller on the table, and now you're able to drag up and down, just use it as a mouse. But, yes, form factor, ergonomics, and a lot of design possibilities that I'm excited about this. And then we go magnets. Okay. Okay, so again, I think from a small changes, it's the form factor again is the same, but the changes are good upgrades, right? So it's going to be easier for me, and I think the tactile feeling of just being able to snap it and that's it, especially now, I know I said this probably being marketed for or designed for an older generation, but in terms of kids, I have kids, and they do sometimes struggle with like sliding this in, making sure it's well placed, that it clicks. Sometimes taking it out, just with the release button, having to release it, it's a very small button, having to release it and then pull it out, it's harder for them. So I'm sure there's a lot of complaints. Also, the connectivity of all the engineering that needs to happen. I think it's going to be easier if everything is just linearly related and it snaps. It is funny because a lot of the marketing for Nintendo, for the whole console, was this kind of like, you put it and then click, that sound. You can see it in the logo and everything. With this, it's changing. I think it still has that sound. So I think the transition from a psychology perspective and design is, still has it, that click, that satisfactory engagement. But, it's interesting that something so iconic is changing, even though the form factor of the whole design is not. So let's see. Let's keep watching. Nintendo Switch 2. Now, something that I want to bring about. Oh, there's still more. Okay, so the game. So before we go into the games, right? Just the idea of calling it Nintendo Switch 2 instead of a whole other thing. It's interesting because from a marketing / psychological perspective, it creates a direct connection as to this is the same thing, it's just upgraded. We just have progressed it in some parts. Now, again, this in my head, it's not really a Nintendo thing to do, even though they have done it, but it's very, very rare on their part to do it. So I think with this whole change of the Nintendo Switch, they're doing what they don't usually do. Now, I don't know if it's because they don't have as an innovative design on their hands for a new console that really feels as different. I don't know if they feel like, these few upgrades and these few additions, possibilities of the few buttons, of the maybe optical sensors, the bigger screen, the magnet attachment, all of these things, maybe they do think that all of these upgrades are good enough that it will open a wave of game design opportunities and innovation that's good enough for their market. They're doing it, so I'm assuming they do think this. Or I don't know if they're still working on something. They just haven't really taken full advantage of the possibilities and the potential of the Switch in general, the Switch archetype, let's say, to move to something else. But again, it doesn't feel as innovative as Nintendo usually feels, and the whole category that it has carved for itself. Just as we saw with the controllers, right? We see with the consoles, even with the cartridges. Let's give me a minute. For example, like you have your NES, cartridges. Look how they are, right? Then you have your Super Nintendo. Look how smaller they are. Colors are the same. Yes, there's a relationship, but the form factor of even the cartridges is different. Nintendo 64, right? Yes, similar, but smaller, and you can tell them apart very quickly. Then from Nintendo 64, we go to the GameCube, where it's like, we went from the cartridge era to the CD, which I didn't like. I thought it was a step away from personality of Nintendo, but still they found a way to be different from everybody else, and they did these little itty bitty CDs for the GameCube console. But then they kind of, with the Wii, they went ahead and did the normal big CDs for whatever reason. Then we come to the Switch, and I was really, really happy with the Switch when they went back to cartridges. And of course, this being the small Switch being the hybrid console between a TV console and a handheld, it's this kind of, they're small. So the design of the cartridges is more from the handheld line rather than the console line. But still, being plastic, being a cartridge, going back to Nintendo roots put me at ease. Which brings me to the next point. The cartridges, all the games from Nintendo Switch 1 to 2, I think are the same. There's compatibility. And I think it's actually going to be the same cartridges. I don't know. I did read. Well, let's get to that part of the video. Yeah, it docks. We still have the grip coming out in 2025. Okay, so first slide with words. So as you can see here, the cartridges seem to be the same for both. And if you read this paragraph here, the compatibility between one game, from games from Switch 1 to Switch 2 will happen. There are some exceptions. I don't know what exactly those exceptions work, but the cartridge is being kept the same. Now, this is again, it's not the usual way Nintendo works, but they have done it before. For example, from the Game Boy Advance to the Game Boy Advance SP, right? Which also felt like an upgrade instead of like a complete change, as to from the Advance SP to the DS, or from the Game Boy Color to the Advance. But the cartridges from Advance to Advance SP are the same, which is kind of like relatable to what's happening here. So, yeah, it's I'm excited about it. But at the same time, I'm a little bit let down that Nintendo is not keeping up with its form factor innovation. With that said, though, I am definitely gonna buy it. I like the black color with the Joy-Cons just having accent colors. It's more in my wheelhouse. Again, like I like black. I like monocolor with accents. I do like that I'm able to play all my games from the Switch 1 into the Switch 2. And I am excited about the few upgrades, but I think there are key upgrades, even though there are a few that will open up, and I'm very interested into what types of games we'll be able to experience, and what game feel other developers are going to be able to create here for the Nintendo Switch 2 experience. But with that said, those are my basic thoughts and initial impressions on the Nintendo Switch 2. Once I get it, I'm hoping to do a more deep dive, like product design, breakdown of the Switch 2. With that said, we have arrived at the end of this video. If you liked it, please make sure to click that like button. It really does help with the algorithm, as well as sharing this link with anybody that you know, family or friends. Watch time is the most important metric right now to be able to grow in YouTube. So I would appreciate any minor help on your part. Really helps us in a major way. If you have any thoughts, any comments, anything that you think I missed or that I should look into or that you just want to share, like just make sure that you share your thoughts on the comments below. I do look at them and I do respond to them all. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Simon. And on this channel, I give a wider and deeper window of understanding into the design world for non-designers as well as fellow designers. And just as you saw in this video, we talk about product design, but we also talk about game design. We also talk about architecture. We talk about theory. We talk about lifestyle of the designer. If you like the video, again, like, share, comment, and with that said, I will see you in the next video.